Happy Thursday, everybody. It's week 12 of Fantasera football. My first start at quarterback for you guys this week is going to be Matt Ryan at home against Tampa Bay. The Atlanta Falcons have been looking better the last couple of weeks, and the Tampa Bay defense is still struggling in that secondary, giving up an average of 291 passing yards per game, as well as 25 passing touchdowns on the season. Sam Darnold at home against Oakland is going to be my second quarterback start this week. In their Week 11 win against the Washington Redskins, he threw for 293 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. This week they're at home against Oakland, who has given up the third most passing touchdowns in the NFL and are allowing an average of 262 passing yards per game. I like the matchup tonight for Jacoby Brissett at Houston. The last time he played the Texans in Week 7, he threw for 326 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He's had a rough few weeks, but with the Houston Texans still being ranked 29th in pass defense, I think he's due for another big night. For quarterback sits in Week 12, I think you bench Josh Allen. He is coming off of a big game last week, but that was against the Miami Dolphins. So this week the Bills host the Broncos. The Broncos are still ranked 5th in pass defense. They're only allowing an average of 210 passing yards per game. They've allowed 10 passing touchdowns on the season, but with 5 interceptions. Daniel Jones and the Giants are coming off of a bye week, and he had a good game the previous week against the Jets, but I don't like the matchup in Chicago. So far, Daniel Jones has committed 17 turnovers on 361 plays. That is the highest in the NFL. Right now, the Chicago Bears have only allowed 9 passing touchdowns, and they've paired that with 7 interceptions. Dak Prescott as a start this week makes me nervous. I feel like against the Patriots in Foxborough, it's either going to be boom or bust. He's had a really good last 3 weeks, but the Patriots defense is still holding it together. They've only allowed 4 passing touchdowns on the season, the fewest, and they have the most interceptions so far this season with 19. So I would be hesitant to start Dak in Foxborough. Dwayne Haskins at home against Detroit is going to be my Week 12 quarterback sleeper. The Redskins have gotten back-to-back home games off of their bye week. The Detroit Lions this season are giving up an average of 288 passing yards per game. They've allowed 22 passing touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. I'm also expecting the Redskins offense to be on the field the majority of the time, as Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford is still out and they are on their 3rd string running back. Jaylen Samuels at Cincinnati is going to be my first running back start, even if James Conner does end up playing. If you watched last week, James Conner was in for a few plays, but re-aggravated his shoulder and went out. So Jaylen Samuels has been getting most of the carries. Cincinnati is ranked dead last in rushing defense. They're giving up an average of 167 yards per game. So I think no matter who runs the ball against the Bengals, they're going to have a big game. Derrick Henry tore apart the Kansas City Chiefs' 30th ranked rushing defense. Then he got a bye, and now the Titans host the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. Jacksonville is ranked 29th in rushing defense, so I am expecting Derrick Henry to have another multiple touchdown game. Tevin Coleman had a huge drop-off after his 4-touchdown game in Week 8 against the Panthers, but I do like the matchup this week against the Packers. San Francisco also might rely heavily on their run game, being as they have multiple receivers and their tight end George Kittle injured and questionable. I expected Falcons running back Brian Hill to have a better game last week against the 27th ranked rushing defense, but he did only average 3.4 yards per carry. This week they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are only giving up an average of 81 rushing yards per game and have only allowed 6 rushing touchdowns. So Brian Hill is a sit in Week 12. The Eagles can't really get anything going offensively, so Miles Sanders at home against Seattle is also a sit for me in Week 12. So far this season, he's only got 1 rushing touchdown and 1 receiving touchdown. Unfortunately, when it comes to this running back, I can't take my own advice because due to injuries and bye weeks, I have to start him. But if you have a better option than Sony Michel, I think you sit him this week. The Cowboys are slightly above average when it comes to rushing defense, but I think it's been made clear that the Patriots are relying on the defense to score them points. So I don't expect a huge game from Sony Michel. I hope I'm wrong because, like I said, I have to start him. But if you have a better option, I'd leave him on your bench. Bo Scarborough at Washington is going to be my running back sleeper. I also have to start him due to injuries and bye weeks. I'm hesitant and scared because, honestly, I don't even think the Lions coaches know what's going on with their run game. But Kerryon Johnson is still out. Ty Johnson out, so Bo Scarborough is really all they have left. So if you're desperate for a running back like I am, go ahead and pick him up and keep your fingers crossed. I really like the matchup for Calvin Ridley at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think he's proven himself to be a reliable receiver. Last week he had 8 receptions on 8 targets for 143 yards and a touchdown. I'm keeping Terry McLaurin as a start in week 12 at home against Detroit. I was hoping he'd have a better game last week against the Jets, but he did have some clutch catches that he made, and I do think he'll see more targets this week against the Lions secondary. My final start at wide receiver this week is going to be Chris Godwin at Atlanta. He has been fairly consistent as far as the number of targets that he's been seeing, and as far as yards after the catch, he has gotten 285 yards in the last 8 games, which is third most among wide receivers. As I mentioned before, I'm nervous about Dak Prescott in Foxborough, so I also have Michael Gallup as a sit. In the last 3 games since the Cowboys bye week, he has either gotten a touchdown or gained 100 yards. But again, that Patriots defense is going to be tough, so if you have a better option at wide receiver. Courtland Sutton finished with 5 catches on 9 targets in what should have been a road win for the Broncos in Minnesota, but the Vikings came back and broke the hearts of Broncos fans everywhere. I don't like the fact that the Broncos have back-to-back road games against tough defenses in the cold. They're at Buffalo this week. I actually really like the under in this game, so I am not expecting the Broncos or the Bills offenses to do much. Julian Edelman at home against the Cowboys is going to be my final wide receiver sit for week 12. As I said before, the Patriots offense just really isn't doing much this year. It's that defense that is holding them up. I also think the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to come out hard because they are playing the Patriots in Foxborough, so I would not start Julian Edelman this week. And again, if you are desperate for a wide receiver, Dante Pettis at home against the Green Bay Packers is going to be my week 12 wide receiver sleeper. As I said before, Emmanuel Sanders is injured, Deebo Samuels is injured, George Kittle is injured, so it's possible that Pettis gets most of the targets. It's a toss-up, it's a risk, but like I said, if you are in desperate need of a wide receiver, maybe go pick him up and see what he can do. All right, so those are my start, sits, and sleepers at quarterback, running back, and wide receiver for week 12. I'll have my parlay up at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram at FantaseraFootball2019. Good luck in all your fantasy leagues, and I'll see you next Thursday.